Russia's top military commander says the US could strike Iran after completing its campaigns in Iraq and Afghanistan. General Nikolai Makarov, the chief of Russia's general staff, was speaking to journalists in Moscow. Let's cross now live to RT's Yekaterina Krachova. Good to see you, Yekaterina. So what basis has he given for these claims?
Well, the chief of the general staff of the Russian armed forces voiced his concerns that military action against Iran could take place soon. And the basis of those claims was an alleged announcement made by the chairman of the Joint Staffs of the United States, Admiral Michael Mullen, who, according to Makarov, put it loud and clear that the United States were ready to deliver strikes against Iran. But there is one circumstance which has so far prevented them from waging a new war.
The
U.S. military have clearly outlined their plans to strike Iran, if necessary. But they also realize that they are currently fighting two wars and will not be able to cope with a third. They will strike Iran only if they first conclude their campaigns in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well, the announcement follows a recent visit of the Israeli Prime Minister to Moscow, where he held talks with Russian President on the Iranian issue. Benjamin Netanyahu used that visit to get Russia on board for still another round of sanctions against Iran, the fourth round. It all follows a recent announcement made by the President of the Republic, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who stated that starting from February 7, his republic has been enriching uranium at 20%, which is only a step away from a 90% enrichment needed to produce a nuclear weapon. And Ahmadinejad showed actually little sign of bending to his will, to the will of his critics.
Of course, if someone wants to act against Iran, we will not respond as before. We won't try to negotiate or explain our stance. There will definitely be countermeasures that will make them regret their actions.
Yekaterina, we know that Makarov also said that a new nuclear arms reduction treaty is 97% complete. So what is still standing in the way of finishing it?
Well, Makarov said that indeed a new arms deal, which is to replace strategic arms reduction treaty START 1, is 97% finished, with only technical issues remained to be agreed. But he said that the U.S. plans to host a new U.S. missile defense systems in Eastern Europe were seriously hampering those negotiations. Well, now for more on all what the chief of the Russian general staff of the Russian armed forces said, I'm now joined by political analyst Vladimir Kozin. Vladimir, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you.
First, Iran. How realistic do you think military action against Iran could be, minding time reference and also the fact that nobody really knows what Tehran's capabilities are?
I see. I think that these plans are unrealistic. And if I may, I would like to put two arguments. First of all, the United States government is not ready at this very juncture to unleash the third war in the area we are talking about. The first two military operations in Afghanistan and in Iraq. So they won't be able to sustain this kind of operations, which definitely will involve a lot of material and human resources, and unfortunately human losses as well. The second argument is that Iran is much stronger than Iraq. Something like 2 decades ago, when Israeli airplanes hit and damaged and actually destroyed its nuclear research center in Iraq. But Iran, as I said, is much stronger, is much more formidable than Iraq those days. So the retaliation would be strong. And I really rely upon Tehran's commitment to resist wholeheartedly.
About retaliation, if Iran is really seeking to produce a nuclear weapon, could the news speed up, encourage it to produce a nuclear bomb sooner rather than later as a means of defense?
It's in our so wonderful world, it's always a practice. When somebody is pressing upon you, you will retaliate. So in this very moment, Iran had been threatening many times to put military pressure, to use military might, to amass warships and missiles around it. But nevertheless, it would be much relevant, instead of warmongering or rattling the saber, to persuade Iran not to do this, not to embark upon nuclear military program, but to resort to normal, peaceful nuclear activity, by the way, permitted by the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Yep. By the way, just today I have heard that Russia, together with the United States government and France, submitted a joint letter to the IAEA Director General criticizing the recent move by Tehran when it decided to upgrade uranium up to 20% level. So the world community should also be more rational in this particular case.
Thank you very much, Vladimir.
My pleasure.
So we're short of time. We really hope that those negotiations will lead to a peaceful settlement of the Iranian issue. Thank you very much for your time. Vladimir Poizin, political analyst, on the recent announcement of the chief of the general staff of the Russian armed forces.
RT's Yekaterina Grachova reporting from Moscow.